Always my soulmate by Watermelon's Melon Felon. Chapter 16. If your wings are broken. Viktor Nikiforov had always loved to look at his mother's wings. They were big and golden and stretched out far enough for the tips of the feathers to touch either side of his bedroom. And when he was younger, he used to ask when he would get his own wings. His mama had always repeated the same thing. You'll get them when your soulmate is born. However, days and months passed, and little Victor did not get his wings. He noticed the stares. He saw the strange looks people sent his way, the pity in some, or the revulsion in others. Having no wings made you an outsider. No wings meant that there was no perfect match for you. Some people who didn't have wings admitted to not caring. They didn't need soulmates and were the types to live their lives without romance or relationships in general. They managed just fine, because they didn't care what the world had to say on the matter. But Victor wanted a soulmate. He wanted someone who could understand and appreciate him, like his babushka sighed about when she rocked in her chair. Victor wanted an eternal friend, but fate didn't deem him worthy of one. They appeared one day, though he could tell immediately that something was wrong. His wings had appeared, but they were black, the blackest black he had ever seen. More importantly was the fact that they weren't feathered, not like a hawk's wings. They weren't large like the wings of other children his age. They felt like leather and were thin and fragile and strangely formed. Victor's excitement drained away. He was different, and if people found out, he'd be even more different. It was better to be thought of as pitiful than as a freak. It was better for his young heart. He'd hide them, so no one could ever see them. The only thing Victor wondered was why his wings had to be so different than everyone else's, and he wondered if his soulmate's wings would match, or what theirs would say about him. It's okay, Yu-chan. Your wings are beautiful. 10-year-old Katsuki Yuri frowned, staring up at his silver wings with annoyance. They were big and bold and demanded attention from everyone. He'd already been dubbed Hasetsu's Tenshi, big, silver, and unique, and Yuri didn't want to be unique. He just wanted to be himself, but everyone wanted to see his wings. They would come from all over Kyushu in order to see him. Him, of all people. And Yuko and Takeshi thought it was hilarious, but the teens always found humor in things his mind had yet to conceive. He learned to ignore the snickers. Anyway, he really didn't like how strange his wings were. He knew they were supposed to represent who his soulmate was, but who in their right mind would have silver wings? Eventually, Yuri stopped showing his wings altogether. It wasn't a shock any longer, and he could actually go about his life without people wanting to talk with him or take photos of him. He was finally allowed privacy, and his first act was to hide. Yuko didn't understand his desire to hide. Why didn't he want his soulmate to know of their connection? Yuri did want his soulmate, but he didn't think that his wings should be what drew them to him. It all seemed incredibly cheesy. The whole falling in love at first glance because of your wings didn't sit right with him. So Yuri would keep a sharp eye out, and if he ever flinched for someone, he'd make sure it was for his soulmate only, after they had a connection. Victor was no longer the poor boy without wings. He was a world-renowned figure skater. His name was a rising one among the world of figure skating. People knew everything about him, from his hobbies to his love history. Well, almost everything. There was one thing he'd managed to keep a secret, and he intended to keep that secret at all costs. Yet there was just something missing. When the video of Katsuki Yuri skating his routine had made it into his inbox, he'd been properly skeptical, but he'd watched it anyway, if only to acknowledge the attempt. The first thing that had shocked him was the fact that Katsuki Yuri did not skate with his wings out for everyone to see. Most people all over the world felt no shame in showing their wings to others, but Yuri simply skated Victor's routine without them. Victor had even done a search and learned that Yuri did indeed have wings, but he chose to hide them because they were too bright and drew too much attention. Yuri was different immediately, and his rendition of Victor's own routine was enough to capture Victor's attention. Later on, Victor's heart was captured when Yuri owned his short program, lending every jump and earning himself an almost record-breaking score. Then Yuri on the ice had been a different Yuri, and Victor found the confidence in his approach almost breathtaking. Enough that he went back to the hotel that evening and watched the performance over and over. And now Yuri was fresh off an emotional breakdown, somehow managing to do exceedingly well in his performance despite having just had a panic attack. And Victor was left to just stand there in amazement as Yuri demonstrated his amazing stamina for the world to see, showcasing his talents for Victor alone. Because Yuri would only ever look in Victor's direction when he skated, because he refused to stare at anyone else. Yes, his landing was off, but he'd managed it. He'd gotten the points. He'd also proven that he was capable of more than what he was already accomplishing, meaning that Victor was going to have to up the difficulty of Yuri's training. But that could come a little later. Now, in Yuri's final spin, his eyes were drawn to something spectacular. Above Yuri's hunched-over body, a silvery light was shining. The light seemed to flex, and from the light appeared two long silver wings that stretched high and fanned out. Yuri slowed to a halt. His newly revealed wings stretched out to their limit, presenting a new Katsuki Yuri that Victor was certain no one had seen before. And Victor found himself rushing to meet Yuri, wanting to be there, wanting to fling himself into the other's arms and congratulate him in the only way he could think of. Yuri understood immediately and met him halfway, his smile wide and infectious, asking if Victor thought he did great. And he did, but there was so much more than that. Those silver wings flapped once, pushing the brunette even faster across the ice, and Victor wasn't going to let Yuri do all the work. Bursting onto the ice himself, Victor threw his arms around Yuri and kissed him for all he was worth. No hesitation and no fear, just an honest expression of his inner pride and joy. And Yuri squeaked a bit, falling back suddenly, his wings coming up to wrap around them both protectively. "It was the only thing I could think of that would surprise you as much as you've surprised me," said Victor, his breath heavy from running. Yuri's hazel eyes sparkled, and his smile was soft and sweet. Victor shifted, ready to relinquish his death grip on the other, but something smooth across his face made him freeze. Yuri's wing, the very tip of it, was brushing against his cheekbone. "You know, our wings are supposed to show us our connection to our soulmates," said Yuri. "Mine are flamboyant and strong, with a beauty far too good for the world. I wonder what that tells me about you." Victor gasped at the implication that they were soulmates. "I don't." The feather was replaced by Yuri's equally soft fingers that tapped lightly and thoughtfully on the bone. "You don't need wings to be mine. I have enough for both of us." His Yuri was so special, so different. He made Victor feel like a person and not a commodity. Amidst the flashing cameras and applauding spectators, Victor did the one thing he never thought he would. He let his wings go free in public. "They aren't normal," he said, eyes downcast. "They are strange and weak." Yet Yuri didn't seem appalled. He looked intrigued, and his hand reached up to brush against the right wing. Victor shuddered at the contact he hadn't expected. "I like them." Flushed and overwhelmed, Victor buried his face in Yuri's neck and allowed the other man to wrap his wings around Victor's fragile ones, returning his embrace in the most intimate of ways. "If your wings are broken, borrow mine till yours can open too. Okay?" Victor gave a small nod and tightened his arms. He didn't actually know if they were soulmates, but then again, he would fight off anyone for Yuri's heart. The heart of being willingly given to him. So he couldn't complain.